See what it is. Yeah, one of my neighbors be making beer, man. I'm getting my homemade IPA taste on.
Oh wow.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Like his own beer?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that domestic or is that imported? No.
It's
Damn.
Harbor
He
City.
got that microbrewery at his crib, huh?
Yeah, in the kitchen. So what's up, y'all? This is Splendid Radio on Pharcyde TV. We got guest host Jeremy Scippio. He's been gone for a while, but he's back in the saddle.
Wow.
I introduced him as a comedian. He said formerly. He said formerly.
Hey, I talked to this dude recently. He said he was an entrepreneur. I was like, oh, so you don't know what you want to do yet. I'm gonna just say I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah,
That's funny.
And then we got guest Hugh Augustine. You know what I'm saying?
What up, y'all?
Rapper,
I'm here.
bowl slanger. You know.
Hey, I could sell it, you feel me? Whatever it is, I could sell it. I know that.
Yeah. Yeah, shoot, the first time I met Hugh in person, I called him up maybe about 10 o'clock in the morning, and we were having a pop-up shop at Store 2 for 2. And I was like, man, I think it might be a cool opportunity. Why don't you come down? Hey, man, he came through with merch, you know, the whole nine. And I was like, okay, I get the cat. You know what I'm saying? I get his hustle. I get his passion. And like I was saying,
we had a couple of people pull up over there that day too.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Yeah, nah, it was a trip. And then you know, I never heard any of Hugh's music. And one of my homeboys had heard Hugh and knew some of his people, and he's like, man, you know, I haven't heard it, but man, you know, he does these shows. He you know, has a bunch of people come out or whatever. He's somebody you need to get up with. So once I got up with him, like he came down to Store 2 for 2. We did he came down to a little in-store thing, and then I saw him. He came through Pharcyde Festival, and I want to say we were at another show, and he pulled up. I want to say with Villain Park.
Yeah.
Cats, and I was like, okay, this cat makes his rounds. He does his you know, he does his thing.
I'm in a lot of circles. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's what's up. So what's up, man?
His music was really new to me, but I really like the West Coast, like, you know, influence. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's so strong, and I don't know. I'm like, I'm
so
from
deep.
Ohio,
it's so deep in my roots, you know.
And
yeah, it's hard to stray away from that West Coast sound. As soon as I hear it, I just gravitate to those beats, you know.
They got like a thump to it, like it's just like I can hear it, man. It's just hard hitting, you know what I'm saying? And you got the slang to match it.
Yeah. You know, that's that real West Side shit.
So what's up, man? So how's the Rona affected you, man?
I mean, honestly, Rona, it's been kind of like ups and downs, you know, like just trying to figure out like what my normal routine is and trying to have some normalcy back in my day. Because usually I would be spending, you know, 8 to 10 hours a day in the studio up in Hollywood. And I kind of took a step back from being in the studio every day just because there's so many people coming in and out of the building. You know, Hollywood was like a real hot spot for the virus. So I just kind of wanted to be on the side of caution and just kind of chill on going over there for a little bit before, you know, we really figured out what the situation was, you know. So it's definitely changed my day-to-day routine. But ironically enough, I've made more money during quarantine than I was making before, you know? So it's kind of crazy.
Good for you, man. Good for you. Yeah, I've been doing a little something, man. But I'll say this, for the most part, Rona woke me up. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I've always been diversified in how I make money and kind of like spread it, you know, things spread out, because I've always I've watched people have one thing and I've always seen something happen to that one thing, and then it's just kind of like a domino effect where you know, it just topples. Back when we had the 92 riots, I was working for Abercrombie and Fitch, which was like at that time it was like a Ralph Lauren. It was before the limited corporation bought them, so they were like, you could get picnic baskets up there, you could get, you know,
Right.
all kinds of stuff, whatever. And so the riots jumped off, and when that happened, it was like I knew that they hadn't made it to the malls yet, but they were coming to the malls. And I was like the only black cat that worked there, and I had this white manager, and she was from Illinois, and she did not want to be in LA, but they kind of like sent her to LA to say, well, if you can run this store, then we'll move you up to corporate. So it was a Saturday morning, and she called me, and she said, can you come into work today? And I was kind of like, you know, the riot had only been going on for a couple of days. And so I was like, well, you know, I'm not on the schedule today. And she was like, well, you'll be here if you want your job. And so, you know, I was forced to come in, and it just changed my whole little perspective, man. It was like, I was like, so here it is, I'm working for somebody, and they're asking me to do something that, like, I shouldn't have to do it, but they're kind of like putting my job, like, okay, well, if you want your job, you got to do this thing.
Right. They like threatening your job.
From that moment, it was like, I just told myself I was never going to do one thing again. Like, I never was going to be in that position where somebody could like fire me or like ruin my whole financial structure.
Your livelihood.
Oh yeah. And so when the Rona jumped off, for about 4 days, the mentality, the whole, that part, it was just kind of like, you know, man, you know, there's never been anything in my lifetime or my parents' lifetime that has just stopped stuff. Like, you know, like we like
the whole world was shut down.
Dude, shut down. But it was a trip because I was at the house for 4 days, and then whenever I'm trying to figure something out, I go to my warehouse. I just like the energy there. Like, as unorganized as it is, I just feel like I can find the answer there. So I went, and long story short, that's how I came up on the mask. You know what I'm saying? And that kind of led me into something to kind of get my mind out of everything that was going on with the Rona.
Right.
So speaking of masks, did you go down to the Juneteenth festival in Leimert Park?
I did. So, you know, I started a new business because of coronavirus. Basically, I'll give you a quick rundown. So, like, the first day that like quarantine was in or whatever, I think it was a Monday or a Tuesday. I was just chilling at home, and I was talking to my mom, and she's like, you know, if your grandma was here, she would be out here figuring out something to hustle out here in the streets, because my grandma was a hustler, you know. So she was like, you need to get out here and sell some food. And at first I was just like, I don't really know, like, if I'm trying to be putting myself out there like that, or what's up, you know what I'm saying? Because just like as a rapper, it's really hard to like step out and try something new without people like trying to like say you're not rapping anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I was kind of like hesitant, but then I was just like, fuck it, I'm gonna try it and see how people react. So I went down to the restaurant depot, I got some supplies, and I made a flyer and I posted it. And the first week, I ended up selling like 50 units of my hot bowls, right? So it was like my company was born. You feel me? I sold out. I flipped my money and I made my re-up. You feel me? So from that right there, I was like, okay, I'm onto something here. You feel me? So the Juneteenth was the 13th week of me starting my Hugh's Hot Bowls vegan food business, right? And it just so happened that morning I got the feature in the LA Times because they did a article on Black-owned music-based companies, and they included me in the article. So I made 85 meals, and I just packed them up and took them out to Lamert for the Juneteenth, and I just passed them all out with my business card for free. You feel me?
Smart move.
Yeah, and literally it took me 30 minutes and all my food was gone. All my cards were gone. You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
So Juneteenth was just a beautiful experience. It was dope to see that everybody is still tapped in, even though, you know, we haven't been in the physical space with each other. Just like on some internet shit, you know. But yeah, Juneteenth was beautiful, man. And it was great to be able to have something to offer in that setting outside of just getting on the mic and telling everybody how dope I am. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, Juneteenth was crazy. Good vibes out there.
I tell you this, man. I looked at some of the footage. People was hella close, man.
Yeah, it was so many people out there.
Not masked up.
A lot of people didn't have their mask on.
Ooh.
I was out there with a mask though. You feel me?
Oh yeah, you got great reason.
Yeah, I had my mask. I sold some masks out there too. So it was cool. It was all money in type of day. You feel me?
Yeah, the girl who works for my dad's office, she called me last Wednesday, and we had opened. My dad has an insurance business, so we had opened up, but we didn't open up to the public. I wanted to do 1 week where we just kind of got back into the groove, or they got back into the groove of, you know, just working, coming in every day, getting a protocol together on how to move forward.
Right.
With people coming into the office with all this. So she calls me Wednesday evening and she said, Greg, you know, my mom tested positive for corona today, and I'm gonna get some stuff and take it home with me just in case, and I'm gonna quarantine. So I was like, okay, no big deal. I mean, she hadn't been to work since, you know, since March anyway. So I mean,
right.
she was working from home though. So I was like, okay, no big deal. So then she went and got tested the next morning. So I was like, okay, well, you know, her mom got it, and she was telling me how her and her sister were gonna go and get a hotel. So I'm thinking to myself, like, well, okay, you're gonna go and get a hotel, but your mother has it, and you live with your mother like that. Like it's just something didn't. I don't know. I just didn't see it as simple as she was telling me.
Right.
So I was like, okay, cool. Work from home, fine. So then I called her Friday morning and I said, okay, so, you know, how are we gonna go about it? How's your mom? And because her mom had a couple health issues anyway, so I was kind of concerned about that. And she was like, Greg, I feel sick. I got a headache. I got a fever. I got, you know, all this stuff. And I'm like, dang, she got it. And so she was like, well, I'm not sure if I have it. And I was like, well, if you told me you have a headache, if you told me your back hurts, if you told me you got a fever, if you know, you're telling me all this stuff, and then I'm listening to her mom cough in the background. So I'm just like, oh, you know, it is what it is. So the trip part about it is her test came back negative, but she's been sick as a dog since Friday. You know what I'm saying? So she got it. So I say that to say, just because you have a negative reading on a test, if you've been around somebody, you probably need to just, you know, for anybody looking and watching, listening, just whatever.
You need to just self-quarantine.
Yeah, you probably need to chill out. And I say that because a lot of people feel like the Rona is like a boogeyman. It's a, you know, the what's that tall dude? Sasquatch, whatever. You know, whatever. They think it's a myth. Yeah, they think it's a myth. But I'll tell you, man,
it's real.
3 cousins got it. 1 cousin died from it. I've known people like not in my circle that had it from afar. 1 person died, but I can honestly say I know somebody that got it, and they were like totally perfect before. Put this way, from her mom testing positive on a Wednesday, from her feeling kind of not well on Thursday, but not tripping because she went to go and get her test, to Friday morning,
feeling sick.
She was, she was whatever. But in the trip thing about it is, they didn't allow, so she wanted to go to the hospital because she had a fever for a couple of days. Nah, that's not gonna work either.
Right, you gotta be sick.
No, you gotta be where they gonna put you face down in a diaper in a room with a bunch of other people that got it in order to get into the hospital. But other than that, take some Tylenol and take some showers. That's basically what they tell you. So
wow. Yeah, I have a friend that I went to high school with, and he lives in New Orleans now. And a few months back, he called me and he said, "Hey man, you know, I'm sick. I think I got this coronavirus shit, but I don't know. And I'm just letting you know now because I don't know what's gonna happen, you know?" So I'm like, "Hey man, you know, don't talk like that. I don't know if you really got it. Just relax, you know, like it's not that crazy." Then a couple of weeks go by, and it was like how he went through his symptoms already, and then he was like feeling better, and he went and got tested, and he tested positive. And he said, I got my results back today. I tested positive, but I just ran 10 miles today. So, you know, it's just crazy how it affects people differently.
Yeah, man.
And I'm saying all of this to say, you know, I think a big issue with how people are responding to all of this is just like we're really lacking our empathy as a society right now, because it shouldn't take knowing somebody personally for you to feel like, oh, I gotta be cautious about this, or you know what I'm saying, I need to change my routine. And I feel like we see that in a lot of different ways, but especially that's become so apparent right now. Like we're so out of touch with each other as people, just because of how we've been living or whatever. We're disconnected. It shouldn't take knowing somebody personally in a global pandemic for you to feel like I need to quarantine or I need to just chill out, you know?
Well, how do you feel about them opening the cities back up?
Well, that's tricky, right? Because it's an economic situation at this point, right? We've got all these businesses that employ a lot of people, you know, that are going bankrupt or they're just not going to be able to open back up. So I understand why they're trying to get these places back open. But to me, I think it's irresponsible. You know what I mean? It's just, we've only been in quarantine for 3 months. They say they're not even going to have a vaccine for 12 to 18 months. And we have, you know what I mean? We're not even halfway through this thing. Yeah, it's definitely a show of how capitalism really does run our society.
So if you could, you would recommend being quarantined the entire 18 months?
I mean, it's probably not the best for everybody's mental health, but in terms of like, you know, the numbers that we're seeing, I think there's something like over 60,000 people with coronavirus in LA City. That's not even LA County. And if you understand the way that viruses infect people, that's a lot of people to have it. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's kind of tricky. I feel like the young people don't really see the effect of it. You know what I mean? So for the young people, I see a lot of people on Instagram who are like having these little private parties and stuff. That's just the wrong way to go about all this.
That's not even
It's
funny.
like, can we chill on the clubbing and the turn up for like just one summer? I know this was the big 2020 new decade summer we all wanted to pop out in. We've been saving money. We trying to show off our new jewelry and our new whips and stuff. But it's like, we got to kind of relax.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Nah,
I've been saving my bread though, so it's cool. Like quarantine, we could quarantine 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. The longer we quarantine, the more money my bank account is gonna have. You feel me? So I'm with the quarantine.
Well, you selling online?
What'd you say?
You selling online? Like that? Is that why it's super beneficial for you?
Well, I do curbside pickup for my food business, and then like my masks and merch and stuff, I sell all that online. Mm-hmm. So I feel like, especially with how everything's going, people are just more trusting of somebody they know. Like that people would rather support locally, especially now, and support Black business, especially now.
Right.
So it's kind of like everything just kind of synced up and it's just working hand in hand. And that's why I've been seeing such a boom in my numbers.
Mm-hmm. Did you protest at all?
Nah, I haven't gone to any protests. The only thing public I did was go to that Juneteenth celebration. But aside from that, the protesting is just, bro, it's way too many people. It's way too many people. Like,
what about people the cause?
The cause?
I mean, do you feel like this is something? Do you feel like is it something that you support, that you actually wanted to see the changes that they've made? Especially as far as police brutality, and they still haven't found Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor's murderers.
They haven't arrested the cops that murdered Breonna Taylor.
Yeah.
I mean, when you say the cause, and if you're talking about the liberation of Black people in America and us, getting our human rights, of course, I'm all about that. I'm all about that cause. I feel like we've been marching for 60 years. So I feel like we got to show our numbers out here with these protests. I think it's really important. I think it's just bad timing that there's a pandemic going on. But I definitely think it's important for people to protest. And if you feel like that's your role in the movement, then you should be out there on the front lines protesting. I feel like for my personal safety and my family's, it's not the best for me to be out there on the front line right now. Mm-hmm. In the past, I've been at every protest. I've been out of state to go to protests. All the way back to the Gen 6, which was like in 2008 or 7.
Yep.
And that's when I was in high school. You know what I'm saying? So I was out here protesting when they killed Trayvon Martin. I was protesting when they killed Big Mike. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Mike Brown. So yeah, I think protesting is a big part of the movement, but just for me personally right now, and just thinking about safety and thinking about all the people that I'm serving every week, I just don't think it's the best thing for me to be out here, being in contact with that many people.
Yeah, a lot of artists have been making songs and, kind of, using their talents or whatever to, kind of add to the cause, I mean, and then some people have even been criticizing the artists who are known for making very pro-Black music for not making anything right now.
For not speaking out, right now. I mean, I think Dave Chappelle, if you saw his latest series that he just put out last week,
absolutely.
I think he made a good point. He said the streets are talking right now. They don't need to hear from Dave Chappelle. And I think that just goes to say that, you know, because artists and athletes, entertainers have such a big platform, the people are constantly looking to them for an opinion. But I think right now we know, like, as Black people or, you know, people in the movement, like, there is a general consensus. Like, we don't need to hear Dave Chappelle's opinion or Jay-Z's opinion to know how to feel about this. Like, we already know how we feel. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We don't need them to be the spokespeople for what's going on. You feel me? But I do think that it's our duty as musicians, artists, or whatever to speak on these current events and to make sure that we're being historians of the time and we're letting people know this is what was going on. But I'm not really into the whole condemning of artists for not speaking up right now. And I talked to I was on live a couple of weeks ago talking to my big homie Joe Claire about this. It's you know, when you as an artist or an athlete, entertainer, when you sign a contract with these big companies and they're giving you all this money and stuff, there's literally a clause in your contract that says, you know, they don't want you to speak about anything that's controversial, anything that's political, because at the end of the day, it affects their bottom line, and maybe the people that invest into their businesses, they don't have the same perspective or the same ideas. You know what I mean?
That's why I retired from comedy.
Yeah, and that's a big that's a big issue. But I think it's become so apparent. Like if you guys have been keeping up with Tory Lanez and his quarantine radio. he even said he went live with, I can't remember what the young lady,
a digital strip club.
Yeah, basically. But he went live with somebody and he was like, you guys all know I'm not the political guy. I don't talk about that stuff. I'm a fun party guy, blah, blah, blah. And then he just said, but you know what's going on right now is wrong. He didn't get too much into it, but it just goes to show you that even the artists that want to use their platform to speak on what's going on, it's like they're still very limited in how they can respond. And I'm just thankful to be an independent artist in that case, because, you know, I'm free to say whatever the hell I want. And I feel like my followers are tuned to that. So if I go on a rant about the police or the criminal justice system, I'm not losing any support, because my fans know that that's who I am.
Have you made any previous music? Well, real quick, I would say on the contrary to what Dave Chappelle said, despite him saying we don't need to hear from artists like that, I'm 50-50 about that, because we got that beautiful piece from him. You know what I'm saying? In the midst of all this. And, you know, art imitating life, life imitating art is always a constant cycle. You know what I'm saying? And timing is key. So it's never a right time. Well, I should say it's always the right time to drop, you know, a knowledge nugget or be an example, you know,
I definitely agree with that. Yeah. But I also think that there has to be a period of reflection. You know what I'm saying? Like, as much as we're just like, we just want everybody to go out and just be extremists about what's going on or whatever, I feel like there still has to be a moment where everybody steps back and we kind of really look at the big picture of what's going on and come with a calculated response. And I feel like Dave Chappelle did that really well. Absolutely. He sat with his thoughts, he reflected on it. And I really love the way that he tied in what's going on now to all of the current events, recent things that's been going on leading up to it. You know what I mean?
Christopher, what's his name? Chris, dang, I can't think his name, but the cop killer dude. Huh? Dorner. Yeah.
Chris Dorner.
Yeah, that was of the entire thing. That was to me the biggest connection.
Right.
He was able to loop those two things. A lot of people don't see that.
But sometimes when you're reactive in your dialogue, you don't get to say everything that you want to say. And so I think that that's a big part of why he took a few days or a few weeks to really gather himself and his thoughts to make a proper response. And I definitely commend him in doing so.
So forget Dave. I was just trying to sneak my way into when's your track dropping?
So yeah, I mean, right now I'm working on a project. I'll drop the title and all that now. We could talk about it. But yeah, my new project is called 100 Years Later. And so basically, what it's about is my great grandparents moved to LA in 1920. They came here on their honeymoon. They were from Colorado Springs, Colorado. And they came here on their honeymoon to visit my great aunt, who was a dancer at the Cotton Club, which was down on South Central. And so they came out here to visit LA, and they fell in love, and they never went back to Colorado. My grandmother was born a couple of years later, and she grew up in LA, in the late 20s, 30s, and 40s. Those were her youth in LA. So it's the storyline or the concept of the album is sort of like giving my perspective on what it's like in LA now, and kind of like if I could have a conversation with my grandmother, explaining to her like, ain't shit changed, Granny. We got freeways now, we got Teslas now, and we got Whole Foods, but the social element is still the same. We're still dealing with police brutality. We're dealing with getting kicked out of the neighborhood. We're dealing with low employment. We're dealing with poverty. We're dealing with segregation. All these things that she was going through when she was growing up in LA, we're still going through the same shit. So it's a social commentary on that, as well as tapping into all the different sides of the LA sound. We got LA lo-fi, we got LA boom bap, we got LA trap, we got LA ratchet music. You know what I'm saying? We got LA smooth shit, LA cool shit. So it's my take on what the LA sound is, and I grew up very eclectic in LA. And I grew up having friends in all the different pocket neighborhoods. So it's really just me giving the perspective on that and all the different sounds that I've picked up along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So 100 years later, it's in the making right now. We're just in the mixing process, you feel me? But I definitely want to get it out 2020.
Heck yeah.
To flip it up real quick, I always chop it up with guests the day of the show, and then also before we go live, just to break the ice and warm it up and whatnot. And I was looking at some of Hugh's YouTube footage, and I saw him on stage, and he was just like very energetic, and he was jumping up and down, very energetic. But
yeah,
when I was going through some of his photos, I saw that that he had looked like he was in a car accident or something. He was like in a backyard. He had his foot up. It looked like it was like almost a nautical boot or something on it. So I asked him, I was like, man, after you were jumping up and down on stage like that, I was like, how was your leg feeling? And then I asked him how. And so I was like, were you in an accident, whatever? He's like, nah, man, I was shot. So I was like, that was very different than what my mind was thinking about.
Right.
And I asked him if it was off limits, because I don't like to have controversial, man, I don't get into people's personal whatever. He's like, no, I'll talk about it. So what was it like the day that you ended up getting shot in your leg? Leading up to the moment.
Yeah, the day leading up to the moment. So it was December 3rd, 2011, right? And so that day is my godbrother's birthday. And I'm gonna try to go through the story real fast. It's kind of a long-winded story.
Yeah.
But you know, we were looking for a new place to go out for his birthday. So one of our buddies had told us that there was a cool bar down in Long Beach at the Pike, and we should go check it out. So the week before his birthday, my godbrother and some of his friends went to the bar, and they were like, it was cool. There was girls there. The music was good. The drinks were good. And it was just a cool vibe. And we never really gone out in Long Beach before because, you know, we're West Side kids. So it was like a change of scenery. So boom, we're at family dinner. You know, my grandma's there, aunties, mom, everybody's in the building. And we sent them the Yelp or whatever to the bar we were going to. So they had checked it out. They're like, yeah, this looks like a bunch of fun. You guys go have a good time. Whoop-de-whoop. So, you know, we hop in the cars. We're like 4 or 5 cars deep. It's me, all my brothers, cousins, girlfriends. We're like a group of 20 people. And we head out to Long Beach to go to this bar. So, you know, we've been at the house having dinner, sipping, smoking, you know. And one of the guys that was with us got too loaded on the way. So once we got to the bar, you know, it was like 20 people. So, you know, we're lined up in the front and we're going in, getting our pat down ID check. I'm like one of the first 5 people to get into the bar out of the big group. So I'm like walking around. I do like 1 lap around the bar real quick. And I'm looking, I'm like, where's everybody else? What's going on? So then my cousin comes up to me and he's like, yeah, the homie can't get in the bar. They said he's too drunk. So we're going to just go back because we had got a couple of hotel rooms. So we were just going to go back to the hotel and hang out there for the rest of the night. On the way out of the bar, we basically get banged on. And for anybody who's not from LA, who doesn't understand what that means, it basically means that somebody from a gang comes up to you and asks you if you're in a gang, and, you know, based on your response, a number of different outcomes can happen. So
they say, "Are you from?" They're like, "Where you from?" And
they're like, "Where you from?"
Like, "Ohio."
And then they tell you where they're from. You feel me?
Yeah.
So we get banged on, and like I said, there's a group of 20 of us, guys and girls. We got on our button-ups and polo shirts and Gucci shoes, and you know what I'm saying, looking real fly. And these dudes got on hoodies, pro club, white tees, and basketball shorts. So it's like they had no business being at the bar. They obviously weren't here to have a good time. You know what I mean? So when I walk into the whole scenario, this is after the initiation of them banging happened, you know? So I'm walking in and I'm like, oh, what's going on? And, you know, I had a few drinks and I smoked a few blunts that night. So I was like feeling real good. I was buzzing. So I come out and I see it was 5 dudes. They're just standing in a line right in front of us when we're walking out. And so we basically end up in a line because the way that we were leaving, we were walking to the parking garage and there was like a little street area. So they're all lined up in the street and we're basically lined up on the sidewalk. And one guy who was standing in the middle, he had his hand in his hoodie pocket. He had one of those big black Pro Club hoodies on. So he just got his hand in his hoodie like this. And like, we all seen movies and I grew up in LA. I know Greg did. I don't know if you grew up in LA, Jeremy.
I didn't, but I got my ass whooped in downtown Cincinnati. So what's up?
Okay, so yeah, I'm sure
dudes.
you've seen dudes with their hand in their hoodie acting like they got something.
Yeah.
You know? And so immediately when I seen that, I was like, this dude could have a gun, but I was like, we're at the Pike. It's like the Grove of Long Beach. It's like an outdoor mall. You know, it's not a place where people are just like toting weapons, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh, I wasn't too worried about it because there's 20 of us. So if it's a fight, I ain't worried about a fight because we're outnumbering them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But then I was like, damn, these dudes are kind of bold. Maybe he does have something. Then next thing I know, the dude's looking over at his homeboy, and his homeboy just gives him a head nod. And the guy pulls the gun, and as he's trying to get the gun out of his pocket, his hand gets stuck in the pocket, and one of my friends who was standing closer to him than I was just punched the guy, right? So then, as he's punching the guy, the guy's falling to the ground, and he gets the gun out, and he just, with his eyes closed, empties the whole clip, right?
Wow.
17 shots.
Wow.
Empties the whole clip like this with his
Wow.
eyes closed, falling to the ground, right? And so when the first shot rings out, you know, we all start running to the cars. I'm standing literally directly in front of the guy, right? So I'm one of the first people to get hit, right? So I get hit in the leg. I go to the ground. My god brother gets hit. It's his birthday, and 4 other people get hit, right? So 6 people get shot. Girls are crying. They're hysterical. The homies are still, the ones who didn't get shot are still fighting the other guys as they're trying to run away back to their car, the dudes who banged on us. It was crazy. And so we're laying there, we're like, where are the police? Like, where's the ambulance? Somebody call, you know? So we end up sitting there for about an hour before the ambulance shows up. And the police show up before the ambulance does. And this kind of goes all the way back to the bias that police have, because the first question they asked us wasn't, are you okay? It wasn't, the ambulance is on the way. It wasn't, we're here to protect you. It was, are you a gang member? Where are y'all from? You feel me? So their presumption of guilt was like the first thing out of their mouth. You know, you must have done something. You must have been the enemy for this to happen to you. Meanwhile, we're just a bunch of kids trying to go to a new spot to get away from the bullshit. You know, so that was a crazy experience. But you know, at the end of the day, we were targeted by gang members, and specifically this kid who was getting initiated into this gang, right? So he was just going around that night looking for people to shoot.
Yeah.
And you know, when I was finally at the hospital, they hit me with the morphine and all that, and they let my mom come in. I told her, I was like, look, Mom, I'm good. This shit is crazy. We got to do something out here, because this kid didn't have no options. He just woke up and felt like he got to get put on and he got to shoot somebody today. And that's a sad reality when you think about it, because this kid lives 20 miles from me. You know what I'm saying? I live right now in Baldwin Hills, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I know kids over here are going through the same thing. So what does that say about our society, to where and this kid was 22 years old, you feel me?
So you
had this level of empathy while you were sitting there with a hole in your leg.
Yeah. I
That's
mean,
amazing.
because the reality was, he got caught. Like the police were already looking for him because they did a drive-by before they shot at us, right? So as they're shooting at us, the cops are driving around looking for these dudes. So that's how they got caught and identified and all that stuff. But what I'm saying is like, I could harbor all the hate in my heart for this person, right? Because of what happened, what they did to me and all that stuff. But the reality is, it's a bigger issue at hand than just me getting shot, right? Because I'm gonna be good. As you see, I'm doing my thing.
Right.
But the problem is that we are out of options out here. You feel me? At 22 years old, you shouldn't feel like you got to join a gang. That's something that we've been doing since we were 10 years old, 11 years old is when we got introduced to gang banging. You know what I'm saying? By the time you're 22, you're supposed to be out of the game. You're supposed to be an OG. You kind of like got your stuff rolling. You just a hustler. You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
So it just goes to show the lack of options that the youth have out here, and the type of poverty that we're living in, to feel like, I can't get a job, I can't go to school, I ain't got no options, and my cousins are getting money because they gangbang. So that's what I'm gonna go do. You feel me? So yeah, it's just crazy. It was definitely a huge turning point in my life, but it informed me on so many things. It really made me sit down with myself through my recovery process and just think and really reflect on what I want out of my life, and what I want to be to the world, how I want to contribute to the world, rather than how can I just, you feel me, be out here doing money grab and live my days out. You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the story in a nutshell. I mean, there's more details, but you feel me? That's what happened. That's where it was at.
That was amazing, man. That was that's crazy. I just saw you posted at the swimming pool with your leg kicked up, and I was like,
Right.
oh man, he probably went. In my mind, I guess how you create things in your mind. I'm like, man, maybe he was in just like a hell of a car accident. You know what I'm saying? And because looking at you and with whatever type of boot or whatever you had on your leg, I knew there was some major recovery involved in whatever the injury was. I knew it wasn't just
totally.
It wasn't just a whatever, but I can empathize with you. I went through some tragedy in my life with my mom passing away, and it was like a home invasion, robbery, just one of the wildest things you could even think of. But at the same time, when it came down to putting the blame, I kind of feel how you feel. I'm like, man, it's easy to blame a person, but if you're really gonna point fingers, you can't start with what it turned into. You got to start from where it was, the nucleus. You got to start.
We're always putting the blame on the side effect, right?
Yeah, and not
never the cause. Never the cause.
We want to blame the symptom, but we don't blame the infection. And I feel you $1,000,000 with that. Like it's like, okay, you could blame the person who did what they did to you, but before we do that, let's talk about home life. Let's talk about education.
Right.
Let's talk about all the people that allowed this cat to slide through the system to get to the point of where he was wearing that hoodie that night. And that.
And I want to add something to that too. Is like, so when the cops, one of the cops who was assigned to this case or whatever, right? The arresting officer, when he came to talk to me, he told me that, and these were his literal words. He said, if I was there, I would have had your back. I would have smoked that guy.
Yeah.
Right?
That's where we
at. Targets.
So the police mentality is that they're at war with the gangs. They see them as enemies, and it's their job to search and destroy. You feel me? And that's a big part of the issue too, is that if you understand the history of gangbanging, it's a response to over policing in our neighborhoods.
Absolutely.
right? So I feel like we can't even get to the solution until we get to the bottom of that, right? Like the violence and stuff that's going on in our communities wouldn't be happening if we didn't have this presence of violence. You know what I'm saying? Because the police are the ones that bring the energy that it's not safe. They're escalating the situation, you know what I'm saying, by being present. And it's just like the relationship that the community has with the police is so poor because of all of the abuse and corruption that there's this deep mistrust of the police, you know what I mean? And then when you hear from one of them saying that, you know, I would have smoked them, it's like, you know, they really feel like it's their duty to get rid of us. Exterminate.
So what's your idea on police reform? I know a lot of the big push was defunding the police. A lot of people, you know, have broken that down into various categories or whatever. But just on like your ideas.
When you say defund the police, a lot of people think that means we want to get rid of the police.
Right.
I feel I have contradicting views on this, right? Because if we want to change a corrupt system, you gotta get rid of it altogether. You can't just fix the problem and then say, okay, the system is fine. It was just this little bug, because that little bug came out of what they thought was a perfect system. It developed into that problem. So taking that bug out isn't going to fix the problem, because it's just prolonging it until it grows back. You know what I mean? So I do feel like when we're talking about, you know, budgets and stuff like that, and city budgets, we shouldn't be giving the police more money than we're giving to the schools.
Everything.
Any other category. There's no reason why police should have these military style weapons and vehicles and all of this stuff, right? So I'm with the whole defund the police thing, but I feel like it's gonna take a destroy and rebuild approach, because at the end of the day, I think that police, they're so deep in their programming that it's not just a thing where you can get rid of one bad apple and everything else is going to be all right. You know what I mean? Like, if you guys have been following the news with the Buffalo PD, I don't know if you saw, they pushed down this old man who was standing in their way, I guess, at a protest, and they literally just pushed this old man over. He fell straight back, hit his head on the concrete, and then he started bleeding from his head, right? They didn't help him. They didn't, you know, somebody had to pick this man up and take him to the hospital. And the officers that pushed him down got suspended or something. I don't know if it was whether they got fired or if they got suspended, but I think it was that they got fired, and the entire task force resigned.
Okay.
So they fired one or two officers, and the whole company resigned.
Okay. One of the things that I saw with that was to the defense of the officer that pushed him down, but to the corruption of the scenario. The officer that pushed him down, when he saw that the dude really hit his head, he wanted to help him, but he had the peer
He
pressure of
couldn't.
all his homeboys. He
Right.
had the peer pressure, and they was like, "You better not." You know what I'm saying?
And they have the way that their system works is like insubordination is a big violation, right?
Yeah.
So if you have orders, it's just like the military. If you have orders, you follow the orders. If you break the chain of command, then we're gonna deal with you when we get home.
No, you're the enemy.
You're the enemy, right?
You become the enemy by that. So that's where it's kind of weird. Like I have two homeboys. I got one homeboy that's on who's SWAT. I got one homeboy two of them are detectives, and not like they both got one got his master's degree, one got his bachelor's degree, criminal justice, whatever. So they're not just little whatevers. They're detectives. Like, you know, they
right
away. The two dudes that are detectives were vocal about kind of like, man, you know, stuff isn't right. You know, they like, you know, stuff isn't right. They didn't talk against their fellow police officers, but they on their social media, man, which I felt that was big, because, you know,
right.
Now another one of the homeboys, this one, he used to hell of a drink in junior high school, hell of a drink in high school. As soon as he graduated from high school, went to the Marines, went to the Middle East on 2 or 3 tours or whatever. He gets out, he gets hired by LAPD. Now, when he first got on like MySpace, I saw a picture of him while he was in the Middle East, and the cat that I went to school with that you know, would drink, smoke, just whatever, he just looked too happy holding that gun. Like, I could see he had changed. Like, he was not, he wasn't the dude who we went to high school with. He's a Hispanic cat, but we were all cool, you know, like extra cool,
Right.
matter of fact. So I try not to look at the social media of my homeboys that are officers, because I just, you know, I don't want to get offended, you know, like I'm that's like, you know, you're looking at something that, you know, there's a good chance that you're going to see something that's going to make you feel a certain way.
Right.
So I go to his Facebook page and he doesn't say anything. He didn't say anything, but one of his police officers had tagged him in a post, and it was like 50 other police officers, because it was 49 people, and then with him. So anyway, so they had shown a clip of where I guess it was in Orange County, and one of the police officers had kneeled with the protesters,
Right.
in order to say, like, you know,
we stand with y'all.
Yeah, cool. So once again, I had no business reading them comments, but I was like, okay.
But you was over there.
I was like, okay, let me read the comments and let me just see how racist or how whatever this is gonna be. And so all these other police officers are talking about, we need to leave, things have changed, this is a sad day, blah, 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 blah. But my homeboy's not saying nothing. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna read 10 more and then I'm gonna leave, because I know. So my boy broke his silence, and he was like, what type of shit is this? You know what I'm saying? And then that led to a whole bunch of other comments, which to what Hugh was saying, in order to change it, the culture of it is just like them against us. You know what I'm saying? And so with it being, and then my homeboy, he's also in a motorcycle gang or motorcycle club, you know, whatever, you know. So it's just, it's very difficult to reform the scenario, because it's like a apple being rotten from the inside out, and it's coming out. Like, man, you could try to peel it and cut it and do everything you want to do, but if it's rotten in the middle of it from the seeds coming out, only thing you're gonna be able to do is chew on some skin. You know what I'm saying?
I think it's in the uniform. I think we should make all cops wear pink spandex, hot pink spandex, and then they can do their job. And from there, they can earn their old outfit back. but after years. I'm talking about 400 years.
Well, I like that idea, but I think it really comes down to education and bias training, right? Because at the end of the day,
bias training
speaks, like, you feel me? Like, teachers have to go through this type of training when they go into schools with students that don't look like them, right?
Right.
Where it's like, you have, as people, we have natural biases towards things that are different than us, right? So there needs to be training to unpack that stuff with these officers before they go into the line of duty. You shouldn't be able to just come with your fucking GED and say, I want to be a cop, and then a few months later they give you a gun and badge and they tell you to go have fun. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no they need to be teaching the history of the police department. You know what I'm saying? They need to be informing people about the criminal justice system. They need to be taking these officers into the prisons, right? And they need to be showing them the conditions of the people that they're locking up. They need to be teaching officers about mental health. You know what I'm saying?
You know what I learned is that my 32 years of living, everybody isn't blessed with empathy. The empathy that you have, that you're trying to give through training, beating a dead horse. I don't know the answer, but I know that this empathy tour that you want to put these officers on is not going to get the results. I mean, some of them, don't get me wrong, who are accessible, but you know, this stuff is very deep rooted. I mean, to change that culture is almost like, I mean, which is what we're trying to do, is changing America.
Well, if we talk about the history of police officers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the 13th Amendment, right?
Right.
Police officers come from plantation overseers, right?
Mm.
That's where the history comes from. Literally, they were founded to capture runaway slaves, right? So it goes back to what I was saying about defunding versus abolishing it. Like, this whole system was based on oppressing Black people. It's based off of imprisoning Black people. So I'm not surprised that in 2020, police officers are beating and killing and arresting and abusing Black people, because that's what they were founded to do, right? To speak on that, do you guys know the history of handguns? The Colt 45. Do you guys know the history of the Colt 45?
No.
So, during the whole Nat Turner revolution, right? When Nat Turner revolted, killed the master, right? Word started getting around to other plantations that slaves were rebelling, right? So what started happening around the South is that slaves were, killing their masters and running away to the North. So the slave owners, they needed a solution because they couldn't reload their musket fast enough to be able to hold off these slaves. And the slaves are coming in with their machetes and whatever weapons they could find and makeshift from around, from them doing their slave work, right? So the guy Colt, he had a assembly line, and he said, I'm gonna make you a 6-shot pistol, that the 6-shot revolver, so that you'll be able to use multiple rounds without having to reload, right? So literally, pistols, and I'm not talking about hunting rifles, I'm talking about handguns and pistols, were invented, created to murder Black people, right? So as long as these things are being produced, they're going to be used to murder black people because that's the intention of it, right? They were literally invented to do so, right? So police having these weapons, it's no wonder that that's what they're using them for because that's what they were created for.
Mm.
You feel me?
I like that, man. Thanks. You're very wise and knowledgeable, man. I'm gonna look that up.
Since we talking all this, let's talk about some hip hop, man.
Let's get into it.
We got heavy than a mug. You understand? I mean, man, yes, I got educated though. I got educated.
Hey, that's what's gonna happen when you put me on the soapbox, man. I'll drop some knowledge on you real quick.
Oh no, this ain't your last. This ain't your last time, young hustler. You know what I'm saying? Sir. Hey man, I'm feeling your energy, man. You see how I reached out. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Trying to do a couple things, but
you gotta know your history. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So tell me this: being in Baldwin Hills, you being a rapper, you're definitely younger than Jeremy and myself. How was it when you heard Ice Cube for the first time? How did that resonate with you?
Well, it's pretty crazy because when I was a kid, my dad was working with Cube. He used to do security for NWA. And then when I was in middle school was when they did the Up in Smoke tour. In elementary school, when I was in 4th grade, they did the Up in Smoke tour. So growing up, I was always I was introduced at a young age to Ice Cube, NWA, Public Enemy. Mm-hmm. I remember growing up knowing all the lyrics to Today Was a Good Day. And then I guess it wasn't until high school where I really dove into Ice Cube and started to understand his ideology. And yeah, I mean, just having an icon like that, a solo artist who was willing to go out on their own and, you know, be relentless in their message. And I want to say Ice Cube was vertically integrated, right? Because he had a message that he put into action with how he handled his business. And a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people talk about, you know, the game and talk about the contracts and blah, 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 but they don't actually live by what they're talking about. You feel me? Mm-hmm. So I always saw Ice Cube as an empowering figure and as somebody that I wanted to emulate myself after. I mean, I knew I was going to be a rapper when I was 8 years old. You feel me? 9 years old. So, yeah, he was definitely a big part of me being inspired to do what I do. And, you know, my dad used to tell me about how he lived in Baldwin Hills in the early 90s after the whole NWA days. And he was a neighbor too. You know what I'm saying?
My boy bought that house.
Oh, really? Cube's old house in the Dons?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I've been there many times. You
yeah, if you're a real LA cat, you know about that. You know what I mean? So yeah, he was definitely a big figure. Hearing him, I can't exactly pinpoint the first time I heard Ice Cube, but I definitely been listening to him my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nah, that's dope, man. That's dope. Were you always a solo MC, or what was your first group?
I was always a solo artist, but coming up, I always worked with groups, just like as a feature. And I was kind of a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of being able to record my music and experimenting because my first producer, his name was Bo Jacobson, was this white kid that I met in middle school. And his older brother was an A&R at Giant Records back in the 90s, and they signed a mod. Mm-hmm. So growing up, I was a big fan of Back in the Days and a mod. And then when I met this kid, he was like, my brother worked on that, and he gave me his old MPC. So we started making records and so on and so forth up and through high school and into college. And in I'd say 10th or 11th grade, I met the dudes from Warm Brew, and they were all going to Santa Monica, to Samo High. So that was the first group that I ever worked with. And we kind of was just like, we're all on the same page. We need to just be moving as a unit. So it was always a Hugh Warm Brew thing, like, for the past at least 10, 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you're one of those cats that you from LA, but you've touched European soil several times. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How did you end up in Europe the first time?
That was pretty crazy, actually. So I went to Loyola High School, which is like a private Jesuit all boys school, right? And freshman year, you get to pick your what language you're gonna take, right? So at the school, they had German as a language option, and they had a German exchange program that would have taken place between your junior and senior year, summertime. You go to Germany and you live out there for a month. And me being a kid from over here, I was like, yo, I don't know how the hell I'm gonna pay for this. I don't know how the hell this is gonna work out, but I gotta get into this program because I don't know how I'm gonna have this opportunity to go to Europe, like, in my lifetime. You feel me? I don't know nobody that's been there. I don't know nobody that's doing that type of shit, especially in high school. All my friends were like, some of them went to Palisades, some went to Dorsey, Crenshaw, Hamilton. None of them were even thinking about, I could go to Europe one day. You know what I'm saying? It was just, how can we get through the day type shit. So I got in the program, and my summer before senior year, I spent a month in Germany. And while I was there, I did a couple of shows because the exchange family that I was with was the only Black family on their side of the program, and we were the only Black family on our side of the program. So we linked up, and the mom happened to be involved with the community. She was like a community organizer, and she knew all the musicians. So she was taking me around to jazz clubs and open mics, and just trying to get me introduced to the Black community and the artist community out there. And from there, I just kept that relationship, and that was kind of my launch pad for going international.
What's your favorite city in Europe?
For a long time, it was Berlin. Berlin is my shit. That was the first place I went to a club at. That was the first city I got drunk at, for real.
Hey.
And had a good time. But this past couple of years, I've been going out to Denmark, to Copenhagen. And I really love it there, man. It's really dope.
Did you ever go to Christiania?
Yeah, man. I've been all up in Christiania. It's funny, the last time I was there, actually, I got to witness a police raid. And this was the craziest thing, because if you know anything about Christiania, you know that, okay, so a little breakdown. Christiania is a sovereign area within Copenhagen in Denmark. So what that means is that it's independent from the country, and the people that live there own the land, and they kind of make their own rules. They have their own schools, they got their own businesses, their own clinics and stuff like that, right? But that's also where they sell weed at. So if you're a tourist or whatever,
and
you're gonna go there and get your little sack or whatever, right? And they have these it's kind of like Venice Beach. They have all these vendors that are set up along this little boardwalk, and you walk through and you go get your stuff, and then you have a good time. So yeah, it was pretty crazy. While I was there, the police raided it, And it was crazy how they had this shit set up, because before the police walked in, maybe 5 minutes before, all you see is 1 minute everything's normal, and then everybody starts scrambling, tucking their stuff, and then 5 minutes later the cops come walking in, and they're looking like, it's a ghost town. Everybody's gone, all the product is put away, they can't find nobody. So that was really dope, man. I definitely suggest everybody, if you get a chance to go to Denmark, go check out Copenhagen, check out Christiania, and just see how people are living a different way of life and finding happiness in that.
Where do you see live performances going with all this?
Man, I don't know if you guys have been checking out, but Live Nations,
I heard that.
They want to charge their artists for cancellations and missed gigs starting next year, right?
Wow.
So I think that goes to show how bad this situation really is, and how much uncertainty there really is moving forward, because these smaller venues, I don't know if they're going to be able to survive. Like the indie venues, the hole in the walls where artists really go to develop and garnish a fan base.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like those spots might start to disappear. And then on the flip side, when you're talking about bigger venues like the Novo, or like the bigger theaters like the Palladium or the El Rey, I'm not sure how people are gonna, like, how comfortable people are gonna be going into a venue that holds 5,000 or 10,000 people to see a show. So I think there's still a lot of uncertainty, and we're gonna have to see kind of how things progress, and them finding a vaccine for this coronavirus. But I definitely feel like in terms of live performances, it's gonna get worse before it gets better for us artists. You know what I mean? I think Erykah Badu has done a great job at being one of the first people to jump on the live stream shows, and using her own website as a platform to stream her content on. You know what I'm saying? I thought that was a great move business wise, and just being a visionary in kind of how the performance space is going to change. Because I definitely don't think we're going to go back to seeing these festivals with 100,000 people, people sleeping in tents and all that stuff like Coachella. I think it's going to be different,
Yeah. So Jeremy, I got like one more question, but I know I went over some of yours. You got something you want to ask?
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
So, I follow a lot of hip hop. Brown kind of follows, like, I guess, the microcosm of it, and he knew what was up with your homeboys, Villain Park, before I even, like, man, I was. I didn't. It was amazing to me, because he was like, "Yo, man, these cats, Villain Park, you know what I'm saying? They're making some noise."
Right.
And when I went to go and look at them, I was like, "Yo, those the dudes that Hugh was with at Pharcyde." Like,
right.
But I'm gonna tell you how my ego is. I was like, "Man, you didn't even tap in with me to get backstage," and I'm like, "Whatever." And I'm looking around, and I see Hugh back there, and he's with his folks, and he's at home, he's rolling with his crew. And I'm looking at like, dude, those are dudes Villain Parks. And I was like, man, he's with the elite of his
right.
Of his generation.
And that's how I like to move too, Greg. Me, like, I feel like in LA there ain't no place I can't go. You know what I'm saying? And I'ma just pull up. On some shit like that. But it's been really great. I met Villain Park back in, I think it was 2013, when they were just getting out of high school. and they saw me at a show that I did up on Melrose at this clothing store. And that's kind of like how we met and up. You know, I've always seen their potential and talent ever since the first day I met them. And they remind me of myself and Warren Brew when we were at that age, and how hungry we were, and how much of like hip hop purists we were. And I've always just loved their energy and wanted to be able to kind of be, not even be a big homie, but because I definitely see them as my equals, but just someone who had more experience to be able to lend some of that expertise and knowledge so that they could move along the course a little bit faster. Because I know I didn't have that when I was 18, 19. I was just figuring shit out and just putting shit on the internet, you know? So it's been really dope to see their progression, and I know they're on the right track, and just their mind about the business is so different than all the young cats that are coming out right now. They're really about the creative control and the ownership, and I feel like that's something that I've always tried to impress on to them and any other artists that I come across in the neighborhood in Lamert, is to just have that ownership of what you're doing, because you never know what it's going to turn into, grow into, and you never want to sell yourself short out of desperation, just because you want to see some progress, you know? Yeah, but definitely Villain Park, man, they coming for the whole industry, and I'm right there with them. I'm cheering them on. You feel me?
Nah, that's tight. Well, nah, dude. I want to thank you for bringing a very, you know, in his, you know, Jeremy. He's been gone for a couple weeks, I think, and whatnot. And I got a homeboy who he drums for the Gorillas, and
Nice.
I wanted to bring him into a conversation, and he was just kind of like, you know, man, you know, it's a lot of heavy stuff going on right now, and I want to touch back with you, but I just really need to process some stuff. So
Right.
I appreciate you coming on and you know, allowing me to just ask questions, like, man, even about your gunshot. You know what I'm saying?
Of course. I mean, I'm pretty much an open
good.
book, bro. Honestly, like, I feel like everybody doesn't have the opportunity to speak on this type of stuff, and you never know who you can reach or who needs to hear this type of shit. So I'm always open to speaking on it. You know what I mean?
Nah, that's tight. And
Yeah.
no, I appreciate it. Well, real before we go, your new video is, or your new single?
Rap Money, baby.
Rap
A
Money.
new single, Rap Money, video out on YouTube, single out on all digital streaming platforms. I mean, that song is really just about economic empowerment. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about creating multiple streams of income. I'm talking about gentrification. You know, I'm talking about how the neighborhood's changing, and it's really about and this is something that Ben Caldwell from the Chaos Network, if you know anything about Lamert Park, Ben Caldwell, I was talking to him a few years ago about gentrification and how the neighborhood was changing, and how me and my homies wanted to get involved with what's going on. And he was telling me, you know, we're the wolves. We're not the sheep. Our community, we are the wolves. We got to be the ones that are taking control and taking action, because this stuff is coming. You know what I'm saying? So we got to be the sharks. You know what I'm saying? We got to be diligent and resourceful, tactful, and mindful about our position in the neighborhood and in the economy and how we spend our money. And you know, if you ain't putting no money where your mouth is, then your opinion don't mean nothing. You know what I'm saying? So it's really just about that, you know, economic empowerment and freedom. Simple as that.
No, that's tight. Shout out to Ben Caldwell, you know what I'm saying? Project Blow, you know.
That's right.
Elder, you know
That's
what I'm
right.
saying?
Lamert Park Elder, OG.
And give them your social media.
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter at Hugh Augustine MC. I'm on YouTube, you feel me? I'm on Tidal, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, the whole nine, you feel me?
Yeah, and Jeremy been sneaking out doing comedy shows. So any comedy any comedy shows you want to shout? You know, anything coming up? People can socially distance themselves and
nah, man. I think you know, I say in the last 90 days I did 3 shows. I don't know what's coming up soon, but I will say I have a friend though. I would like you guys to actually invest some time into studying. Her name's Erica Rhodes. She's actually running for Congress. You know, I've been when all the stuff is going on, I actually been trying to educate myself in the you know the political realm or whatever. And you know, I say she's actually a good person that you know I would like to see make some changes. She's a teacher, and she works really close with the youth or whatever. So I would say you know, if you can, Erica Rhodes, check her out. You know, website, Twitter. Yeah, as far as me, yeah, standby right now, man.
Quarantine.
Yeah, you catch me arguing with a bunch of random people on Instagram, Jeremy Comedy. You know, it's pretty much some entertaining stuff on there. Actually, I just put up some clips of mine because I'm kind of one of those people who have always kind of talked about the subject anyway. So I just put up a clip, my thoughts on Black Lives Matter and how I tried to join, but the website was down at the time. And yeah, like I said, that's pretty much it. Jeremy Comedy, Jeremy Scippio, SCIPPIO.com, everything else.
nah, good looking. Well, no, man, we're gonna tap back in with you, Hugh. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank everybody for that tuned in to Splendid Radio on Pharcyde TV. Peace.